Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, May 20th. Hope everybody's had a great day so far. We have a lot to get into. New rules in the NFL, a new rule specifically talking about the eligibility of the NFL players to play in the Olympic team for flag football. We'll talk about our dream team. We'll talk about the rules that are being voted on right now. We will talk all about a new CEO potentially in college football, as well as some news from around the world of baseball. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, May 20th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our first topic here, that having to do with the world of college football. College football, of course, is going through one of the biggest transition periods that we have seen in any sport in our lifetime. They are fundamentally changing what college football is, and this, as the House settlement is about to come down really any day, any week now. Once that comes down, these changes are going to go like wildfire. They're going to happen in the blink of an eye because the college football power conferences, your SECs, your Big Tens, they are trying to get this so that they are closer to a Super League. We have talked about this in bits and pieces before, talking about what a Super League might look like, how the pieces they're putting together, the doomsday clock that is set for 2031 in college football. They're putting all these pieces in motion right now, and the most recent piece that is coming out here is to do with a brand new CEO. Now, they're going to create a committee called the College Football Committee. Basically, a new version of the NCAA, a version to separate themselves, just college football, from the rest of the collegiate sports. This is something that obviously cannot be done until the NIL stuff is figured out with the House settlement, but it is something that is being put in motion right now, and it's something that's very intriguing, that as you take a look at for the future of college sports, should not just brush under the rug like anything. This came out yesterday from Albert Breer. The CEO has not been decided yet, but there's going to be a new committee showing up. They're going to be in charge of basically everything but the academic side of things when it comes to football. They are separating themselves from the NCAA step by step until they can make a clean and easy breakaway from the organization. This is something that is not a hypothetical anymore. This is something that will happen in the future. This is something that, with this move, will 100% change the landscape of college sports. Now, is this necessarily a bad thing? As I've been talking about, using words like doomsday, losing words like a creation of a new league, right? It's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. For one, it's going to help separate and give more funding, potentially, to a lot of other sports. This is the good scenario, right? The good scenario is schools continue to fund college football, and as it gets separated, you have more money to give towards programs that have become defunct due to Title IX funding. Due to the fact that the football program costs so much money, you now have more money to give to these smaller programs, your track and field, your softball, your baseball program, stuff like that. Help build up these Olympic sports so that you can have a real program, an NCAA level program, and still have a football program. Now, that's something that is going to be very interesting to see, and I don't know how that's necessarily going to evolve around college football. But what this CEO of college football is going to do is definitely change the landscape entirely. Again, this is not something that's going to be turn around once this is passed and make that breakaway. Things are going to be put in motion for the long run. This is like a chess play. They're about 5 moves out from separating themselves fully, but it's something that Greg Sankey and the SEC and the Big Ten together have been trying to do, get more power, consolidate the power so that they have the ability and they know how to run a league without the NCAA. Again, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there are also bad scenarios. We've talked about the good scenarios. The bad scenarios here upcoming are going to be football goes. Football no longer as a part of the NCAA because Title IX might not affect them anymore. And that's going to be another kind of legal ruling. If they are legally distinct from the rest of the NCAA, does Title IX still apply to college football? That's going to be something that I think is really interesting to talk about when we get down the line to 2030, to 2031, to 2032. These conversations 4 or 5 years down the line. This is something that I think is going to be the focal point. If it is decided that Title IX no longer applies to football because it will have been separated from the rest of the collegiate sports, there is a chance that a lot of the funding for women's sports goes away. And that is the opposite of what can happen. There is a fork in the road situation there. Now, I do think that since the university would still be funding these leagues theoretically, that Title IX would still apply. But if there is a world where they craft a legal argument and the courts agree with them that Title IX no longer applies because college football is distinct, separate, and is a money-making venture rather than is just a public school kind of thing or private school, university kind of thing, that is something that I think could completely change the dynamic of college athletics, which is why I call it a doomsday scenario, because I do think there's going to be a lot more schools that say this is making us money and this is not making us money. We are going to put more money into the thing that is making us money and giving us notoriety, and that would most likely be the football aspect of things. I'm really curious how this is going to go because this, like I said, has very wide-reaching consequences. This, like I said, has very huge, very huge kind of falling out points from here. This is just one of the steps that they're putting towards a super league, a separation between the NCAA and college football as a whole. And it's something just to keep an eye on because once this train gets rolling, it's going to be really hard to stop. And this train is about to get rolling. Once the House settlement comes down, things are starting to get put in place. This new CEO, this new college football committee, as well as the cooperation between the Big Ten and the SEC, the consolidation of power of those two conferences, their creation of the current college football playoff system, how that is going to be put together, and the powerlessness of the group of five and even the ACC and the Big 12 to have any real input on how these college football playoffs are going to be formed. When you add all 4 or 5 of those things together, you get a situation where you get a brand new separate for-profit league that is now college football. And I have no idea how that is going to affect things in the future, but I do know it is going to be a fundamental shift in how we view not just college football, but collegiate sports as a whole across this country. And it's going to be the biggest change that any of us will ever see in our lifetimes, and maybe in our children and grandchildren's lifetimes in any sports league ever. They are creating a new one basically out of the ruins of the NCAA. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, not more downside here, but there are new rules potentially being voted on in the NFL. Potentially banning the tush push has some really powerful backers. A new rule has already passed about flag football participation, an onside kick rule potentially, as well as a playoff seeding rule. We'll talk about all of that and more coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.